welcome to Biz Podcast. Today we have Paul, and he's from Concept Vehicle Leasing. But before we go any further, Paul, just introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what you do.
Okay, so I'm Paul Bulloch. I'm the Managing Director at Concept Vehicle Leasing.
Okay, so Paul, today we're going to be talking, tell us what we're going to be talking about. So we're going to talk about reviewing your vehicle policy.
We are, yes. So, it's the start of a brand new year. Happy New Year, by the way. And it's a really good time to think about, how well your vehicles for business are performing, how well your cars and vans are running, thinking about the policies that you have in place, whether the vehicles are fit for purpose, whether you're fulfilling your legal obligations in relation to your staff. And just thinking about the image that the vehicles that you're running really portray for your business. So we've come up with some sort of handy tips and some pointers there to talk about really with businesses and to sort of set the scene for hopefully 2019.
Brilliant. So let's start with the first question, Paul. What is the first one?
Okay, so the first thing really is whether the cars and vans that you have on fleet are, representing the image that you want to portray for your business. So you're thinking about your brand. If you're running perhaps some clapped out old vans that are showing perhaps their age, perhaps higher mileage, then you might want to think about whether they need to be upgraded, replaced, and whether really the image that you're portraying is right for your business.
And I think that must be a big one as well, because is it one of those things that businesses are hesitant to fix, or is it just an aesthetics thing, or does it really have an impact on really the business?
Well, I think it depends really. If you've got people that are going out and meeting clients, then there may be a requirement to have a certain standard of car. Doesn't necessarily have to be the flashiest, fanciest vehicle from the showroom, but it certainly needs to be fit for purpose and portray the right image. Obviously with the commercial vehicles, quite often they'll be sign written. It's a great way for businesses to get their brand and their name out into the wider community. But if you've got a sign written vehicle, then certainly you're going to want to make sure that the vehicle's kept clean, roadworthy, and is presenting the right image.
Brilliant. And what's the second one, Paul?
So again, thinking about whether vehicles are the right financial solution for the business. Perhaps you're buying your vehicles outright typically. Perhaps you put them through on a lease. Obviously, that's something that we specialise in. But are they draining cash? Are they costing money in terms of maintaining them, servicing tyres, downtime? All of these things can really add up. So it's good to review that, thinking about budgets for the year, and whether there might be a more cash friendly and cash efficient way of running vehicles for your business.
Brilliant. Is that something that you can give advice on as well?
Absolutely. We're an independent vehicle leasing and fleet management provider, so we don't just look after companies that want to lease. We look after the whole fleet management piece. We've got customers that perhaps buy their vehicles, but they need help and advice on the best way to maximise efficiency, minimise downtime, look after things like servicing and tyres, and making sure that that they're efficient in terms of the cost on that. So there's lots of ways that we can help businesses and talk to them about how they can save money in this year and beyond.
That's excellent. So they have that peace of mind knowing that they're able to rely on you for the upkeep and the advice as well behind that.
Absolutely, yes.
Amazing.
And obviously, if they want to talk about leasing as well and other finance options, as opposed to perhaps tying money up in what is generally a depreciating asset, then we can help with that as well. But really, we provide that consultancy approach to all aspects of running vehicles for business.
Brilliant. And what's the next one?
Okay, so this is a bit of a controversial one. Is the company car a perk? So I think businesses really need to think about why they're offering a vehicle to their staff, if they are doing so, or whether they should be offering a vehicle to their staff. Is it a perk? There are mixed views on whether it is a perk. I think, quite often people like to have a nice new shiny car and perhaps replace it every few years. But there are tax implications, there are cost implications for businesses. So there has to be a rationale behind
it,
really, whether that is justified, and perhaps if there isn't a requirement now, whether there might be in the future. So that's all part of planning, I think, for this year and beyond.
Is it still quite popular for businesses to have the company cars as perks?
It's an interesting one. I think it's certainly less of a perk than it used to be, because taxation really comes into play. Undoubtedly, I know we have a lot of business customers that offer company cars, partly to do a job, but partly as a sort of a perk or an incentive. It's really popular, obviously, with sales operations, the company car. But there's lots of things to consider, and that's why it's really important to have a framework and a policy in place that has some criteria and some rules behind it. The type of car that you should offer, thinking about the environment and whether it should be below a certain level of CO2 emissions, obviously cost, image, being fit for purpose. You can't have everyone running around in the latest, flashiest convertible, for example, as much as I'm sure we'd all love to have that. So it certainly can be a perk, but there needs to be the business rationale behind it, and you need to think about having the right policy in place to make sure it's controlled and it's not going to cause the business or the employee headaches further down the line.
Amazing. Okay, what's the next one?
So license checking, I know, it sounds exciting, doesn't it? But it's really, really important. Businesses have a legal duty of care obligation to make sure that they are checking driving licenses for anybody that's driving on company business. So it's not just those that perhaps are in a company vehicle. It is, if you have a member of staff that are using their own car, even if it's to pop down to the bank to pay the cash or the checks in for the business, if people still issue checks, I'm not sure. But
archaic, but it does happen.
It does happen. They're still in existence. For whatever the need is for the employee using a vehicle for business, you need to make sure that you're checking the license, making sure that they've got a valid driving license, that they're not banned, making sure they have the right insurance as well, insured for business, and it's a really important duty of care obligation. It's a really basic, fundamental one, and again, we look after that for customers. We can provide an automated solution to help just manage that, and it's really, really cost effective, but it's one less thing to worry about. Yeah.
So let's talk about suppliers. So are your current suppliers still the best ones for your needs?
Again, really important if you're perhaps starting a new financial year. We're at the start of another year, so thinking about finance, thinking about supplier network that you have, that supply chain. Are they the right people? Are you using perhaps a number of different suppliers, which could be perhaps merged into a smaller number, or even a single point of contact? Quite often we see businesses using, XYZ company for their finance, but they're using someone else to do the license checking, and they might do someone else, might be using multiple maintenance suppliers, and of course bringing all of that under one single point of contact can save time and money. So thinking about how many people you're using, how much time that's taking up, and whether there might be a more efficient and cost-effective solution.
And should you be outsourcing more?
Well, I guess that sort of goes hand in hand really with the whole supplier and supply chain thing. Again, this is really, really common. We see this within businesses of all shapes and sizes, where you've got perhaps just a few vehicles that you need for the business. I can think of one particular company that's a really big electronics manufacturer, hundreds and hundreds of staff, but they've only got 2 vehicles.
Wow.
So that's managed. they look to outsource the management of that because otherwise it's taking up somebody in the business's time. We've got another business that have around 30 vehicles, but instead of the finance director who typically might be looking after all aspects of dealing with tyres and maintenance and breakdowns, thinking about whether there might be a better way of dealing with that, freeing up time in the business, and outsourcing that to a third party. And again, something that we can advise and help businesses with. Outsourcing is a great way of just reducing that the time and obviously the financial impacts of running vehicles for business.
So let's talk about insurance. When it comes to our personal insurance, it's easy to look for the best deal because it's us who are dealing with the cost. But what about for businesses? I mean, when it comes to dealing with insurance, how do we know, how do they ensure that they're getting the best deal? How could they, because I know again it comes down to time and resources and who does the work. How do we go about this, getting the best deal on your car insurance for your business?
Yeah, it's a bit more complex. You're right. In the consumer personal market, it's easy to go on to one of the big online comparison sites and find the best and the cheapest, perhaps it's the cheapest deal. But it's a bit more complex for businesses. There's a few other factors that will come into play, such as perhaps the type of work that they're doing. How many claims perhaps their drivers have had in previous years, the types of vehicles they're running as well, really important. So it's quite difficult to get sort of online comparison quotes for insurance. There's a couple of options available in the marketplace. We tend to advise talking to an insurance broker as one option, because an insurance broker has access to the whole of the market. They'll have the experience and expertise to be able to learn about your business, but then also know which insurers are going to be the best fit. It can be really difficult to source insurance if you're a new fleet. So perhaps if whether you're an established business or even a new business that you're starting to take on vehicles that you need for your staff, it can be really difficult to get a fleet policy because there's no prior track record or experience.
Just like it would be with your personal insurance when you're a new driver, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Still that challenge in the beginning.
Yeah, so we'd certainly recommend talking to an insurance broker about that. There is another option as well in terms of a fully insured lease. So that's quite unique in the marketplace and something that we can advise on, where your insurance is included with your monthly lease rental. And it's a fully comprehensive policy with quite often lower restrictions than perhaps your insurance companies would impose. For example, minimum age being 21, and quite often the minimum age on a fleet policy is 25. So there's a few things that we can help with there and really point businesses in the right direction when it comes to how to source the best insurance.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Yeah, no problem. Hope that helps.
Valuable information right there, especially for any business who is just starting out, like you said, and trying to get their feet on the ground when it comes to getting their company car and insurance and who does it, and it's really good information there. So thank you very much once again. Where can we find you for more information?
We're in Surbiton in Surrey, but we cover the whole of the UK. We're really, really proactive in the Surrey and Hampshire area, hence why we're talking to Biz today. So you can certainly pop in and see us with a high street location in Surbiton on the Yule Road. Obviously online via our website, just search for Concept Vehicle Leasing on Google, or pick up the phone and talk to us.
Best way.
We don't bite.
Thank you very much, Paul, once again, and see you soon.
Pleasure. Thanks very much.